everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy
Microphone
Tuesday.
checker. 1, 2, checker.
There we go. There we go. Listen, we're both rocking the same microphone now.
I got to get something that hanging from the ceiling or something.
In behind the scenes news, you just need one of these boom arms here. Let's see.
Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's happening?
Um, how are you this evening?
Oh, I'm going to let you do all the talking today. I'm good. I'm going to be
I don't
quiet.
think so. This is going to be a great conversation. You're watching Beyond 2D. I'm one of your hosts, Jessica Dugas, and this is my fabulous co-host.
I'm Farron, Dozier. How's everybody
There it
today?
is. There it is. We have been in the midst of this series that we decided to do to kick off this season. Who
Yeah.
thought this was a great idea?
Who picked this subject? You?
Yeah, perhaps,
Maybe.
perhaps.
So we agree. We did
We
agree.
have been in the midst of this series about grief. And it's something that is hits very close to home for both of us in our experience. And it's something that has had a tremendous impact on my personal and spiritual development. And I think we'll definitely talk more about that in our final week. But in the first week, we defined grief. We talked about the textbook definition and what grief also means to us, what it is and what it isn't. And then the second week, we talked about the stages of grief. We learned some new things about the stages. I think most of us originally were taught that there were 5 stages of grief, and we learned that there are more now, as more research has been done about the grief experience. And we talked about how uh, for the most part, I think we disagreed with it being a linear sort of experience, that it's more of like it comes when it comes, so
Yeah,
sort of
for
thing.
sure.
And tonight we move on to the topic of grief support. So I am really I'm excited to dive into this topic because support is something that I think most of us as human want in our lives, period. So of course we're going to desire some level of support while we're going through a season of grief. So we'll start out, why don't you start out by sharing, because you don't want to talk today.
I don't want
um
to talk.
I'm gonna have you share first, what uh let's start with what support looks like for you. Like, what kind of support do you desire when you are grieving? And quick, what's up to Miss Brittany and Miss Danielle holding it down out there in the social media land?
Ladies.
Ladies.
um, I don't even. So when my dad passed in 19, I didn't even know what to do with that. I didn't even thinking about grief. But I happened to be at the VA at an appointment, and I was talking to a representative, and she said, "Oh, the VA has grief classes."
Mm,
I was like, "Sign me up," because for me, the work that had done up until that point was based on a lot of personal development, self development,
mm,
um, understanding, being used by principles and those distinctions that education used. I knew that I had been living from those, and so I trusted those, and I felt like if that education helped me with what I was dealing with, my mental health and who I was as a person, then taking a grief class could only help,
mm.
because I do believe that we're used by principles. We may not language it that way, but we're all being used by something,
Right.
an opinion, an experience, and we behave from those principles. So I just knew that when she said that they had grief courses there at the VA, I was interested. I don't think
Right.
before that, my dad's passing, I don't think I've ever used any grief support. Um, I know the military offered, mental health stuff. When a friend or a veteran friend of mine or a service member of mine committed suicide or completed their life, I don't remember taking any classes for those.
Mm,
So that my first experience of a grief support was, you know, the VA.
right.
and everything. But before that, with my grandmother, till 2019 was all like you figure it out on your own. It was like
Right.
just it wasn't like I don't even think it's a family conversation. Nothing that we utilized, you know, when loved ones passed. It was like we're going to the funeral and
Right.
everybody up, cry, you do what you do. But me, after my grandmother passed in '95, I avoided funerals
Mm.
because I didn't want that emotion. So maybe that was my thing. I avoided at all costs to go to a funeral.
Right. Right. I think a lot of people are in that boat. Funerals can, especially if we haven't done any work around the topic of grief.
Yeah.
Funerals are tough. Funerals are tough to navigate for many different reasons. And I think what you're talking about receiving like formal support is, I think that that is rare for a lot of people in general. There are, like I shared, I taught the grief share program, and that was after I had experienced tremendous loss in my life.
Mhm.
I attended one, and then I helped teach the next class. And it was helpful in, I guess, putting more words behind what I was experiencing in the sense of grief. And then of course with teaching, being able to share my experience with other people and
Mhm.
kind of have that commonality of grief and talking to them about their loved ones that had passed. And but I think that those kind of classes, I mean, you think about it, the church had, upwards of 1,000 people, and there was probably like maybe 5 people in the grief share
Mm.
class. So
Yeah.
you know that a lot of people are not utilizing those formal grief tools. However, there's other ways that we receive support when we are going through, or we could receive support when we're going through a grief experience. And some of those things being helpful phone calls. Somebody might make us a meal. Somebody might take us to an appointment. Somebody might how other people around us might be there for us in the ways of support. Were any of those things that you received from other people during any grief experiences?
Can I say what's not a grief support, or are we gonna wait for that one?
We'll give it a moment.
Okay,
Give
we'll
it
give it
a
a
moment.
moment. Again, I wanna honestly say that I don't remember having any kind of support around the losses.
Mm,
Like, I can't recall and say, "Oh, yeah, I met this one person said, 'Come over and hang out.'" Or I believe I was honestly more of the grief support,
mm,
especially when my soldier took his life, completed his life, um, for you a few years back. I was the one that went to the family and comforted the mom and the sister and the brother, like, so but that was my military identity. It was more of, like, that was my soldier. Like, so
mm,
like, it was, like, my responsibility, almost not, I won't say obligated, but definitely I felt like it was my responsibility because
right,
he was in my unit, you know, but before he got out.
right,
So,
right.
yeah, I think I was the one putting on that, support type of system for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about, the responsibility of, so I think that the relationship that we have with whoever passed. So if we're talking specifically right now about grief as far as loss of human life, okay? Because we talked about earlier in this series about how grief can be for a lot of different things,
Right.
not just someone who's passed. So if we're
Yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
human life passing, okay, um I think that the relationship that we have with the person has definitely dictated the kind of support that I have received from
Mm.
people, which is really interesting to look at that. So when I've had really good friends pass away, there may have been people that have popped up and been like, "Can do you need someone to talk to?"
Mhm.
Or and that was pretty much it when it comes to, like, what people wanted to offer as far as, like, support with when a friend passed away. But, like, when my brother passed away,
Mm.
that was a different thing. It was more than just, do you need an ear? There was, do you need time off? Do you need me to watch the kids? Do you need me to, there were offers to step in. Um, and I also can't say that if we're taking the loss of human life off the table, if experiencing grief in other ways, if those kind of things were ever offered during those periods of time as well. It's kind of like everybody's just kind of like, well, you'll get over it. But if you need someone to talk to, oh,
But see, that's can I go there yet or no? We taking
okay.
a
Do
break?
you want do you want to go there already?
Because that is to me
I
that
want to
is
I want to ask everybody. I
okay.
want to ask
Okay.
everybody. Okay, so Danielle, Brittany, anybody else is joining us live or on the replay. If you have been through a season of grief, can you share with us in the comments what kind of support you have received? Now, I'm not asking the kind of support you needed yet. We're not there yet, but what kind of support have you received? Because I think there's a little bit of there's a disconnect, I
Yes,
believe,
I
between
agree.
what we need
Yes,
and maybe what we've received or what we've been offered,
yeah.
as far as support goes.
That's I'll hold mine down because then that's what I'm pointing to. There is a disconnect
There is.
between the
There
two,
is for sure.
and
And we're
like
also gonna go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say for those out there that are still in that space, just find somewhere, find an education, find a location. Make sure if it's your church or whatever you believe in, or
Mm.
go sign up for a grievance course. I promise you, they will give you some tools to start to manage those emotions for sure.
Yeah, because I will say that about this particular question. What if you are not receiving support? There
Mm,
are places that you can get support. Sometimes, and we'll get into this in the next couple of questions here. Sometimes the circle that we are surrounded with don't know how to provide
mm,
support.
mhm.
And so that's something to keep in mind. Like you may just have to look elsewhere.
Professional.
Brittany said it's just what you said. People saying, "I'm here for you. If you need anything, let me know." And that's about it as far as support I've received. Yeah.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you so much. So I want to move on to kind of the next question of
Okay.
this, which is what kind of support do you feel like you need or envision for yourself during a season of grief? What does Farron need? And again, this is different than what you may have. We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah. No, I'm good. Honestly, what I think I still need today, and it's 5 years into my dad this year,
Mm,
is still someone to listen.
yeah.
Somewhere where I could just say what I need to say without, feedback or a comment. Just the space to just be like, this is how I feel right now,
Mm,
ah, like that space. That's what Farron needs.
yeah.
And I don't really have that, or I haven't expressed that to my circle of folks
Mm,
to request that from them. So
yeah.
maybe that's a lack of confidence for myself to being able to express that. Um, but I had to learn even before the grievance classes. I had to learn how to just be with my emotions. That was something
Mm,
that helped me in the personal development. That helped me learn the difference that we have feelings and emotions, and we don't have to become them. So when I
yeah.
learned from that principle, I don't have to become my feelings and emotions. That really helped me to deal with anxiety, right, and depression and things like that. But when it came to that grief conversation, that also did help because those emotions that came up around the loss, um, that helped. But there's still something missing for sure.
Yeah, and that was gonna be, like, my next question for you that you answered was, have you expressed what your needs are to the people, like, so that it's hard, right? Like, to because
I'm the man.
like, and I get that. I get that. But even like even as a human being, it is hard to say I am in need of what insert whatever here
Yeah.
because that that's us putting right on the table. I'm vulnerable right now.
Yeah, that's not one of my favorite words.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We shut that one down.
Danielle Danielle doesn't remember what kind of support she was given. And sometimes that's a blur too. Like you just,
Yeah.
you know.
In the midst.
Brittany said, I'm here for this. Just show up for me. Bring me cake, ice cream, cry with me if you
Ah!
feel like it, and let's watch all the drama on TV.
Cake,
Sometimes you
cake,
just need
cake,
that
cake,
too.
cake, cake,
All
cake,
the
cake.
cake. All the cake. Yeah, one of the things that's important for me, like as far as listening, it's not for me, I want to celebrate their lives with people. Like that's what I want to
Mm,
do. So and that's what makes me feel good. That's one of the things that
mm,
really helps. That is a huge support to me in when I'm feeling the grief is to be able to celebrate their lives. So when my brother passed away, we started doing on his birthday and the day he died, we asked everybody to wear black and yellow because those were his colors. Not just they were colors that he liked, but then also they tied into the kind of cancer that he had, which was really ironic. But we have everybody wear black and yellow, and then on his birthday we like to go out and do like random acts of kindness. And it
mm,
always bothered me that we couldn't that I wasn't here in Connecticut because in the beginning when he passed, like everybody would head over to Sneakers, which was his favorite bar, and they
mm.
would go and like they would have a shot for Adam. Like,
Oh,
they would all get together and kind of do that. And I was always sad that I couldn't be here. So organizing this, everybody wear the same color and do a random act of kindness. This was something that I could do from far away. And I
yeah.
had always like dreamed of being back here in Connecticut so that when his birthday came up or the anniversary came up that I could go to Sneakers too. Well, now it's been um 14 almost 15 years since he passed. Um and nobody's going to Sneakers anymore and I'm
Mm.
back here. And I just wanted somebody to to come
Just
too.
do that. Yeah.
His dad came at one of the times since we've been home. And then the same thing with my grandmother. I had one friend, like I invited all these people, like come out and let's I just want to talk about what an amazing woman my grandma was. Like let's just like she was so awesome and I just want to get together and talk about it. And like I had one friend like come to the cemetery with me and like drop off a flower.
I don't think that's normal
You don't think what's normal?
that people get together and celebrate. I know certain cultures do that.
And that's
I know there's a certain cultures that honor, you know, the passing of that person like maybe like a couple of times, but
mm,
I don't really see that even in my environment where we come together and celebrate that person's life and all we all and sit and talk and share stories. Like I think that's what's missing though.
yeah.
I think that's the missing piece. And we go back, one of my other conversations in life is that family dynamic, so now it
Mhm,
goes back to the sense of belonging to your own family and all the things that get in the way of
mhm.
families being able to communicate and express themselves in this kind of way that probably would be beneficial to the children, to the grandchildren. Now you're making me think. Now you're making me think like that. That is a missing piece
Yeah,
of what could be a healing process for the family to say what you need to
yeah.
say about that
Mhm.
loved one, about your grandfather who just passed. Like my grandfather passed during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like it was, and I drove to go speak at the military base. It was like, and I don't even really think since 2020 have we ever really sat down and had some memories,
Mm,
discussions about granddad.
right.
Yeah, now you're making me think that could be a healing, that could be a support right there.
That's what I mean,
Wow.
that's what when I am in
Different.
One of the biggest ways I support myself, because as we talk about support, we have to talk about how we support ourselves too. Because look at and ultimately, and we're gonna get into this in the next question, we could envision all the support for ourselves, but that doesn't mean we're gonna get it. So how can we be so at the end of the day, how can we support ourselves through this process? And one of the ways that I do that is sharing stories when I am feeling like I am missing my grandma or my grandpa or my brother or whoever hard.
Yeah.
I'll go find one of my kids and tell them a story.
You know what could be in the way of loved ones coming together with that kind of conversation could be resentment and regret.
Mm,
And that could be a hurdle.
yeah,
That how can I come in with my family and loved ones and say all these great things about grandpa when I'm holding something against him, or I'm
right,
holding something against myself that I should have called him more. But that's
right.
that's the space where you get to say that though,
That's it.
right? That's
Because
what be
I've
the
said it
space.
in that space. I've said it in
That's
that space.
wow. This
I
is
have said
crazy.
like literally I
Wow. Wow,
when
wow.
I have talked about stories about my brother often, especially to my kids. When my kids are bickering, that's one of my favorite times to tell a story about my brother because
Come
I
hither.
because can I just bicker with him one more time?
Yeah.
I went on a whole thing the other day about how when we were little, um, he had the WWF wrestling ring,
Yeah.
when he would play with all Bam Bam Bigelow and
Yeah.
all the all the old wrestlers, right? He used to come take my Barbies. He used to come steal my Barbies and put them in the wrestling ring. It was not okay.
That's
It was not
right.
and so I'm telling my kids these stories about that and I'm like, so complain about your sibling taking your stuff one more time. Go complain about them taking your stuff one more time.
Yeah.
'Cause I please come take my stuff
Really.
for one more moment.
Man, you got me today. You got me because I didn't think that I had anything to offer to this conversation today.
Of
But
course you
but
did.
but but my listening, but my offering my listening to you helps me understand that that could be something that we as a family need to do
Mm,
and come together and sit and say, "Hey, how you feel since grandpa been gone? How you feel since your dad's not around? Like and let people say what's on their heart without reacting to them and without defending what you have to respond with. Man, that would probably be the best grief support that you could get from your own
mm,
loved ones.
yeah.
Wow.
And it
You
doesn't have to be like, look, the talking about someone dying is generally, I'm gonna use a big general term here, not a comfortable conversation for people, right?
exactly,
In
exactly,
general, it's not.
exactly.
So when you make it a point to be like, we're gonna go out, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna go out to dinner and we're just gonna celebrate their life. And things will come up naturally. Things will like you can just be like, look, we're just gonna go out to dinner. It happens to be the day they passed away. We're gonna come together in their energy of what was, and things will come up naturally. Sometimes the conversations are uncomfortable, and sometimes it's a beautiful, like it's a storytelling. Like it feels like the old times, when we didn't have cell phones and we were just sitting there telling stories because that was entertainment. But this is like the real life story.
But I can tell you, I'm the one thing that I'm so grateful for is that the ability to heal my relationship with my dad those 8 years
Mm.
prior to him passing. Because again, I could see if I hadn't done that, how
Those dinners will be a
horrible.
lot different.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. It would be horrible.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everything I'd have to just go shut off radio, like everything, because
Mhm.
I would be in such of a resentment, especially the stuff that I had carried for all those years, those 35 years. I carried a lot that I thought he didn't love me for 35 years
Right.
until I realized that that was my truth. It wasn't the truth. So I could see in reverse how, again, having families come together and you're carrying that resentment, that's
Mhm.
what's probably going to come up first. not the
Yep.
great stories. Because now I realize with my healing with my dad, the stories that I share about my dad to my daughters and my those are they're not going to be from upset. They're not going to be from, oh yeah, I can't stand him. It's going to be, hey, this is who your dad, my grandfather was, your great grandfather was, and these are the
Right.
stories, and this is the transition, and this is the love that he really had. And so the shares are going to be different for sure
Mm.
if there's healing that was completed before the passing versus after. And then, like I said, the resentment, the regrets, the self disappointment that people have when those loved ones are gone, and you feel like you can't complete that relationship. Like
Right.
people carry that heartache, and so how can you come around and want to be lovey dovey when I have a negative story about my brother or my father
Mhm.
that I really want to say out loud, but I don't even have the space. But again, maybe coming together as a family creates that space that the resentment and regret can be handled.
Right.
But it's like you said, it's going to take a level of, for me, confidence or courage to create the space for that person to be like,
Right.
hey, you can say what you want to say about dad. And even if it's not a good comment,
Mhm.
you should be able to express that, because that was your experience, your feelings. And this is where you can clear it so that
Right.
we can help you maybe look at it from another perspective.
And here's the truth of the situation. Every single person on this planet, you, me included, are very layered individuals, and we
Mhm.
have very different aspects of our lives. There's not one person. I was talking about I was in a conversation the other day where I was talking about my parents and how I try to remember that that my parents had stuff going on that I know nothing about. And I
Mhm.
know you've done this work and you've had these. So my parents had things going on in their lives that I know nothing about. And so when you make the decision to have these conversations, these intimate conversations, whether it's just story time or whatever,
Yeah.
just you have to kind of go into it in the knowing that every single human being is a layered person, and that all you're doing is like you're filling in pieces of the puzzle of who this
Yeah.
person was,
Mhm.
and one situation, one story, one perspective doesn't make a person.
Mm-mm.
So you're going to get all kinds of things. And so I will say, like, as we're talking about this, it's even so in general, this me wanting to honor the people that have lived, it's about what do I need and what do I envision for the support that I want to receive? I want someone to allow me to remember them.
Yeah.
And even if we're not talking about the loss of a human being, I would like the support I received for people to allow me the space to remember whatever it is I'm grieving in the way that it needs to be honored so that I can continue to move forward and feel good. I want to say a quick hi to Cheryl who's joining us this evening. Hello, good to see you. Um so listen, do you want to take a quick break and then come back and talk about the flip?
Please. I don't think we want to mix that up. That'll
Okay.
cut for a good clip separate.
All right. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and talk about some more
Oh,
as we
please.
talk about grief support
Please.
today, and we'd love for you guys to continue to chime in the comments, and we'll be right back after this.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm blessed, my brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey, did you see the game last night?
Oh, that was a good game.
But did you see the shot?
I lost money from that shot.
Oh,
too,
man, that shot was cold,
I
man.
hated it, but it was good. Damn. What's in those jeans?
You really want to know?
I do.
Exhaustion, muscle spasms, asthmatic issues, unexpected sickle cell trait crises.
Damn. Are you serious? When I was young, I found out I had sickle cell trait. My mom's told me, but I ain't have no knowledge of it. But when I got older, I had a child, and the doctor told me my daughter had sickle cell trait. Do you know the facts that both parents have sickle cell trait? There's a 50% chance the child may have the trait and 25% chance the child may have the disease.
Hey, that's what's the count. Do you know that 2.5 million people in the United States have sickle cell trait, 300 million people globally? I didn't find out I had sickle cell trait until I was in the Army 10 years. Next thing you know, I had a sickle cell trait exertion site.
Sickle cell? I thought that was a black gene or something.
Nah, man, the Latin community is number 2. 1 out of 36,000 babies are being born with sickle cell disease. You could be Caucasian, Mediterranean, European. You gotta know your bloodline, man.
There is an inherited gene in our community that has been forgotten. The name is sickle cell trait. WDCONSCT, also known as What's the Count, is out to bring awareness, education, and prevention to people all over the globe. Want more information? Call us now at 323-215-5384 or visit www.wdconsct.org.
Welcome back to Beyond 2D. It's season 2, everybody, episode 3. We are smack in the middle of this series we've been doing about grief. We've talked about the definition of grief and what it means to us. We've talked about the stages of grief. And tonight we are talking about grief support. Before the break, we were discussing about what kinds of support we have received during a season of grief, and also what kinds of support we need and envision for ourselves. We talked about arranging little meet to honor the people.
I like that though. I think that is honestly, I think that's necessary.
Yeah,
that would be the one thing about love and family. You know, there's a love that people say agape love and the different, so there's a storge love, which is for family love. I think it's either Greeks or Hebrews. They use that term. So the storge love for family love comes with obligation. I said that on one of the previous episodes. That family love comes with the sense of obligation. And to really have that friendship love and family love, it takes an extra effort because the obligation is already there. That sense of obligation. So to be able to have that open discussion, like we were talking about, like you want, people have to be able to put that obligation love aside and experience the family love, that real friendship love inside of the family love. It takes work. It takes extra work to experience that kind of feeling with your family members. So yeah, I honestly, you gave me some insights, because I actually like that, because that will allow my daughters to say what they've been holding on in their minds, in their hearts, these last 5 years almost, because we really haven't said, like, we'll spit out things, but not like, hey, how do you feel? Like, how have you been feeling? Like, what do you do when those feel like we know?
And you can soften it by creating that space. You can soften it, doing it over a meal, over a nice time of day, like in a park or something that helps it feel like more of a safe, like, look, we're just having a meal, like, and it creates that safe space to be able to express yourself.
I like that. Thank you for that. I like that.
You're welcome. Well, as we continue to move forward in this conversation, the next question I wanted to talk to everybody about is, how does the support you have received and the support you've needed compare to each other? Like, have you, and I think we've kind of danced around it a little bit already tonight, but oftentimes what we envision and what we want isn't what we need. And it goes back to some of it being, I think, partly what you were saying about not necessarily expressing your needs and what you want. So how are we supposed to know if you don't share what it is that you need? But then also people not really knowing, like we there, for the most part, we are not taught this is how you appropriately support somebody during a season of grief. So let's talk about that. If y'all want to chime in the comments, how does the support you've needed in a season of grief compare to what you've actually received? And what does not supportive behavior look like to you?
So this is something, and I've had to catch myself and reflect on this with myself, that human beings, us as people, sometimes y'all, we are just so sincere. And I'm gonna leave it with, it's we're sincere. Like we say things to say things to say things with really, probably because we don't even know what to say in those moments. And I can tell you the mistakes that I've made in these conversations was saying, "Hey, if you need anything, just let me know."
Raise your hand if you've ever heard that out there. If you need anything, just let me know. Or if you need an ear, I'm here. Something like that.
And that and to recognize even in myself how I may have meant it, but it was also coming from a place where I really don't know what to say right now. So I'm gonna say what I hear what people say normally. Let me know if you need anything, which I wouldn't even know what to do if you asked me what you needed, right? So and it's not right or wrong, people. It's not right or wrong, but just recognize that when we say things to people, where it's coming from, genuinely. And just don't, just by saying, "Oh, let me know if you need something." Don't say that, because with that, that's like saying, "How you feel? How you feeling today?" Right? Some people say, "Oh, I'm fine," and we were sincere with our conversations, but around, especially with grief and loss, and for people, human beings being lost, do your best to recognize where you're being sincere, because when that person really is going to need you for that support that you offering blanketly, are you going to be able to respond? Are you going to be there for that person when they call you at the middle of the night and say, "Hey, I'm in tears, can you talk right now?" Well, no, I'm asleep, I got to go to work at 5. No, you told me I could call you if I needed something, and it's 3 a.m. and I need you. So just that. Sometimes I've heard from people, just come by and don't say nothing. I don't need you. I just be present. I don't even need you to say anything. Just come and just sit next to me and be present. You don't have to say nothing. But when offering that support, make sure that you really mean it, and it's not just like, "Let me know if you need something," and it's 5 o'clock at night now. Bye. Like, no, like that's because it's going to be a point where that person's going to need you, and maybe that's why for me it's like I don't even say nothing, because people are, it's like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know when it's genuine. You know when there's a genuine conversation about, "Hey, if you need something from me, let me know. I'm here. Whatever, just call." Like, you know when that person is being for real versus a sincere comment. That's what I want.
Yeah. When you started that beautiful monologue, by the way, um I'm gonna say something that's gonna I just need to say this like this. You started off the conversation saying that there is no right or wrong when it comes to this, and I agree that there isn't a right or wrong with the support that we sincerely offer
Yeah,
and authentically mean.
yeah,
There is, to me, a right or wrong when it comes to not being authentic in what you are offering.
yeah,
If you come to me and say, "You can come to me at any time," my next question now is, what do you mean by any time?
yeah, yeah.
Because most people don't believe any don't align with any time. That 3 o'clock in the morning call, is that okay with you? Is it
Right.
okay with you when I'm bawling my eyes out at 3 o'clock in the morning that I call you at that time? And I say this with absolute love this evening. That is not okay. And I'm calling myself out at
Mhm.
times that I have done that. And that's the last few years, that's absolutely not for me at anymore. I will specifically say, what can I do?
Yeah,
I will ask that question, what can I do? And this ties into our next question as well, by the way. How can we be a support to others? during a season of grief as well.
Yeah.
But I ask questions now.
Yeah.
I ask what you need. And if I can fulfill some of those needs, I will let you know that I can fulfill those things. But we have got to stop, guys. It is not okay.
No.
It is not okay to say anything you need.
Yeah.
Last year, I was in a tremendous season of grief. It was not over loss of life. There was other things that I was grieving, and it was a very difficult time for me last year. And I cannot tell you how many people said, anything you need, Jessica.
Mhm.
And it came time that I needed. And when I reached out, I cannot tell you how many people's responses were, "Oh, I didn't mean that," or
Mm.
I didn't think you would. I just meant like if you needed somebody to talk to." Well, I
Mm.
had been talked out last year. I was
Yeah.
exhausted. That's one of the things that's so important to remember when someone's going through a season of grief. They might not they, they might be talked out. Like they're
Mhm.
done. They
Mhm.
talk to their one or two people and then they're done with their energy is done for the day.
Yeah.
So then it comes time with how are the dishes going to get done when you're so in that like you just need to cry it out. Who's going
Mhm.
to take care of the kids? How are you going to get to appointments? How the meals are going to get made? All of
Mhm.
these different questions, but then you come and call on the anything you need and it's well I didn't mean that. We have got to stop like there is a right or wrong for me on that. Like be authentic about what you're offering for
What
sure.
what you pointing to for me as I filter, my principles that I live from, so I don't react to your conversation is integrity. And
Right.
people, we have to understand that all you have is your word. It's your word. It's your word. And as she said, you can negotiate your word. It's really a fun conversation to negotiate your word.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm saying we can be sincere with our words, but if you tell the truth, if you tell the truth, if you tell the truth, if you tell the truth to yourself, that sometimes it's hard to keep our word to our own self, let alone to other people.
Yeah.
And so by being able to ask questions, if someone's that's grieving and you want to say, hey, anything that I can do for you, you might want to kind of reframe that question and then be honest about what you are offering of your time. So that person knows, oh, Farron said he would help me in this kind of situation, and that's what I need right now.
Yep.
But to sincerely say that, and then that's going to keep me being able to honor my word to myself that I've given to you. And a lot of times, again, all we have is our word. And if you've done this over time, especially just to yourself, it's hard for me to keep my word to my own self, let alone give it away to somebody else. So to acknowledge that for myself and be like, you know what, I got to be more specific in what I
Right.
really want to offer. And you can negotiate expectations, you can negotiate conversations, but it takes something. And again, if I lack integrity in myself, then I'm going to lack a level of self-confidence also within myself. So
Yep.
then it's going to be hard for me to give that word away and keep that word. So to me, Jessica, that's what you're pointing to is
Yeah.
that level of integrity is always out. So you've always got to,
That's the place to check
that's
yourself.
the
And
place to
in
check yourself.
every conversation that we've
Yeah.
had on this show so far, that
Yeah.
integrity is where you got to go back to and check yourself. And I even like I asked on my Facebook page the other day, do your actions align with what you say that you
Yeah.
want? So do your actions align with what you're promising other people in in whatever season of grief they're in. Danielle said actions speak louder than words. And Cheryl agrees. And Cheryl also said, when my half brother died, I was all alone. People said they would be there, but in reality that they
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah.
And then Danielle said non-supportive to her is avoidance. And I
Mhm.
agree. That's another and that's going back to what I was talking about honoring them, even if they don't want to like come out to dinner and talk about it. Like
Yeah.
if I want to talk about it, the most supportive thing to me would be to let me talk about it and
Right.
and not like be like, oh, that didn't like let's not talk
But
about that.
that's again, we have to teach, and this is definitely can be taught because we teach it to set your comments and emotions and concerns aside.
Mm,
If I can, when I can set my emotions aside and concerns for you, because my reactions is even not reaching out to you when you're grieving is still me showing love to you because I don't even know what to say. Like, so we got to understand too that withholding communication is communication, and
mm,
sometimes when people withhold their communication from us because they don't know what to say.
right.
And so, and that's still coming from a place from, I believe, from love underneath it all, because I don't want to say the wrong thing then, right? And
Right.
a friend of mine lost her dad recently, and it's like, and I knew her mom, and I knew her mom, but I don't even know what to say.
Mm.
Like I don't even know what to say. Like,
I think in if I can offer something as far as that goes, one of the things that is most helpful for me when I don't know what to say, which happens often, believe it or not, um, is asking questions.
yeah,
Asking questions. You don't have to know what to say. And I think that if we can get past that, if we can understand that we don't have to have all the words, we
yeah,
don't have to have the perfect thing to say. Stop waiting to be the part because, most of us are not speakers.
right,
We're not motivation. We're not Tony Robbins over here. Like we're not going to always have the right thing to say. Um, but if we can ask questions, if somebody had just said to me like, you know, this this I'm sure this is a difficult time for you. What did you love about your brother?
mm,
Even just or is there anything that you would like to share with me about your mom?
yeah,
That then you let them talk. And then if they say I don't have any or I can't right now or I don't have you've opened that door
yeah,
to where now if they have something that they want to talk about later, they know that you asked, you were willing to hear. So we don't have to have the right thing to say. We don't have to have anything to say at all
yeah.
because we
That's
my job if I'm being a support to people, it's very similar to when I'm hosting a show with a guest.
mhm.
My job is to create a space of safety and comfort for them and to listen to what they're having to say. And if I can support that with saying something great,
Yeah. If
but
not,
that's not the priority.
yeah, yeah. It's again, it can be challenging. Like I said, I get it because I've done it with a sincerity conversation. But when I learned correctly and I found something that challenged that up against myself, like, okay, maybe that there's another perspective that I can have. There's another interpretation I can have about that conversation. Let me see what that looks like, and then try that. I found that being not being sincere works. Just being able to say, hey, what do you need? If you need, what do you need, or can I help with something? And then
Right,
allow them to share what they in that space. But
right.
always be able to honor my word. I think when the rubber meets the road, that action speaks louder than words. I'm so challenged by that phrase. That phrase is challenging. Maybe we'll do a subject on it one day, but
I think for me it's
that's,
your integrity speaks louder than
yeah,
words.
yeah.
That's what it's about for me. I think action is a word that saying's been around a long time.
I know, and it's such a
And I think that
cliche.
it's one that it's just comfortable for people, but for
Yeah,
me it's your integrity speaks louder than words. Like you can tell me whatever you want, but if I don't see that kind of behavior, then I'm not gonna
yeah.
believe it.
And we like I said, we also have to give before we say action speaks louder than words. Even in the midst of my grief, I can only imagine what the people around me how they feel about me and my loss, right? So then now you got to give
Mm,
them the space to be okay because they may not know what to say to me, right? So they might be dealing with their own world of the loss because that loss impacts everybody. It impacts not just your family, but the friends and the cousins and the friends of the friends. And our I'll say this, in our integrity, our words also impact people in that same way. If I said something to Jessica, it's not going to affect her. It could affect her, her husband, her children, her aunt, her like. So our words are that powerful. When you
right.
when you get that your words impact others to others and others to others and others, Like you were responsible for what you say. You're responsible for holding your word accountable to yourself. And that's how I learned about my integrity and how to maintain it and how to, because I saw not just the impact on myself with my own words or to my words to you, but then to you and your daughter and your husband. Like that's my words impacting your family line. And when you get that and you're present to what that feels like and what that sounds like, you may not want to be. I stopped talking as much because it was like I'm not. There's something I'm like I'm not gonna say that because I know the impact of my words. Our words are powerful, and we use action speaks louder than words to kind of smooth that out. But I like, hey, that's my words are just as important as my actions, for sure.
Yeah. I think when I think, with Danielle referring to that, and it ties into what we're talking about in this grief conversation, because you said it yourself in talking about when other people offer something and don't actually mean it, and in this case, that saying it ties in for me,
Yeah,
it's you, if you do what you say you're going to do, or don't promise those things, don't use your words, and it's because of what you're talking about that words are powerful, and
yeah,
sometimes that's all we have to go off of.
that's
If you
it.
promise me something, or if you say that this is how you're going to support me, and it doesn't, and that doesn't happen.
And I learned as well. You can break a promise by honoring the acknowledgement of the promise being broken. But you also have to remember that if you give your word initially and you break that promise or you change your mind, there could be an impact again on that person by you changing your mind or breaking that promise.
You have to understand that there may be consequences that come
Exactly.
with that.
Exactly.
If your integrity, your actions, whatever word you want to use, doesn't align with what you're saying,
Yeah.
you may not be believed ever again. It's a
That's
it's
what
a boy who cried wolf situation.
exactly. So that's what I'm saying. You've got to be present to your word, and a lot of people don't give their word anymore because they don't want to break promises because of how it feels for themselves. Also, I mean, when you break a promise, you too feel diminished about yourself as well, and so does the other person. However, if you're being your word and you're honoring your word, hey, you know what? I gave my word that I can be there this time, and I can't be there. And so, can we negotiate that, or what's the consequence? And I might just have to go and alter what I was gonna do because I don't want to break that. I don't want to have that consequence that happened between us.
Right,
So then I'm just gonna keep my word to you. But that's communication. That's where we started this
right.
whole talk show from, Beyond
Yep,
2D, around communication. And that's me honoring my word and my promise. And then if it's negotiable, if I can change it, then we can change it. If not, then I'm gonna have to be okay with the consequence that's gonna come from you to me, or I'm just gonna be like, okay, well, let me move my other stuff around because I gave my word to you to be there for you in this way. So
right,
you can
right,
you can break your promise, but there could come with some
right.
consequences. Yeah.
As Farron mentioned, communication. One of the things that I would like to do, we have about 5 minutes left in the show. While we're finishing up this conversation, speaking of communication, I would love for you to go in the comments, and I just wanted to give you guys the space and the opportunity to share something, a little story, something
Mhm.
you loved, something about a loved one that you have grieved for. I would
Yeah.
love for you to go to the comments and just share. It could be any little thing. I love their smile. You could tell a little story, whatever you want. I want to give you this space to do that. So go to the comments and share something with us about a loved one that you have grieved for. I would love to just do something that we could share a smile about that person,
Yeah.
in the comments. And as we talk about communication, Faran, as we're talking about support and expressing what we need as far as support, what do you think are some good ways that we could start to, even us, as we've talked about our own struggles with this, what is a good what ways that we can start to communicate more, or create a space for communication for other people that might be going through a grief experience to express what they need, what type of support they need?
That's a difficult question to answer because people have to be willing,
Mhm.
right? So if I'm not willing to even have a discussion about that, then it's going to be challenging for me to have you open up, right? And then it could be again because I've said so much in the past and my words have no value to you anymore, right? Because of my integrity is out. I might go back to that person who's grieving and say, hey, you know what, Jessica, man, I just want to say thank you, just for your friendship and for you being there for me. And if I've said anything, in the past that I didn't honor my word to you, I just want to acknowledge that, hey, just say, please forgive me because I really didn't know how to approach you around that. And because of my words, I don't even know what that feels like to have a loss of a brother because I don't have a brother. But I just want you to know that if I've done anything or said anything in the past that has been a wedge in our relationship, I just want to acknowledge that. And if you have anything that you want to say about your brother or about this conversation, I'm giving you the space to say that because I want to kind of clean up the mess from our friendship. And I'm going to take responsibility because I care about you and I know you're dealing with life, as we all are. And I just didn't know what to say about your brother. So I'm here to kind of clean that up. I mean, that's what I would do as a person, to have that space, clean up your mess. You can clean up but you got to be honest about it. You got to be real about it. You got to, really, if that's what you really want to do, if you really want to be engaged in that person, we disappoint one another. We do. Parents, we disappoint our children. Children, you disappoint your parents. And brothers and sisters, we disappoint each other. And that disappointment can be so diminishing that I don't even know what to say now. Like I know I haven't honored my word to you, and I'm carrying that weight. And how can I create the space? I have to acknowledge myself. I have to acknowledge my attitude. I have to acknowledge what I've said or I didn't do. And I believe once you can do that and let that person say what's in their space. Hey, Farron, you know what? Yeah, you did this and you disappointed me and you did. Okay, anything else? And yeah, and then by the time you get to that space of nothing, then guess what? Okay, so where can we go from here?
Yeah.
How can I really support you? Because I can see you're dealing with some stuff still. So let me find out what I can help and give my word to that part of it. Like that's a lot.
Yeah. Why
But
you
it
have to
takes
cut the onion?
but it takes a lot of courage from I'm saying we have to give people in our life compassion too. We want compassion. We want that kindness. We have to give that to ourselves and give that to people just the same. Even if in the midst of my
Absolutely.
circumstance and my own grieving process, I can't let that be a tool that I use against people as well. I have to take responsibility for my grief experience as well. And I have to
Right.
give that compassion to other people because they might be dealing with that loss too in their own way. Or that loss reminds them of a loss. Now we're all grieving and everything is out.
Yeah.
So who's going to be the first person that says, hey, you know what? Let me clean this up.
Right.
I'm willing to be the bigger person. Let me clean this up. I'm going to take, I could look at my life and say, you know what? I didn't honor my word to her. Let me go back and clean that up. Because that might be the start of a whole mess of stuff getting cleaned up. Or that
Right.
might just be enough to restore that relationship with integrity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It takes confidence. It takes courage. And give that person the same compassion that you want in return.
Yeah. And I would say two things. One, in this conversation about grief, there's always room for grace. There's always room for grace and understanding that everybody processes things in their own way. When I say the words that there is a right or wrong with certain things,
Yeah.
I also mean that there's room for communication and understanding and grace and knowing, like, don't assume that because someone's behaving a certain way in grief that they're processing it the same way as you. Like, it
Right.
just it that is what it is. And also, I just I feel very called to say that it's okay to say that you don't know what to say.
For
It's
sure.
okay to say that. I would much rather have had someone say to me, I don't know what to say I don't
Thank
know how
you.
to process this, Jessica. I don't know what to say, than to not say anything at all or pretend I don't exist or not take my call,
Yeah.
those kind of things. To me, imperfect communication is way trumps no communication at all,
Yeah. For
from
sure.
any day. And it's so important for us to ask questions.
I
Um,
agree.
I wanna get to our comments really quick because
Okay.
these are cute. Danielle said, "I love and miss how my dad would have these funny sayings and joke all the time. He was always making me laugh." I love that.
Comedian.
And it's the funny stories for me. Brittany said, "I will never forget the time with my soul sister when we went out and told the guys that our names were cereal and bread and our parents were hippies who had the munchies." I
That's
can see that.
funny.
I can see
That's
it.
funny. Cereal and bread.
I can see it.
That's
What's
funny.
what's something that you will always remember about your dad?
You know, the biggest thing that I remember about my dad is him saying to me that I never thought I could learn something from my son. That was
Mm,
him acknowledging that I could contribute to his life and that I've had contributed to his life. And that was him acknowledging his son. Sometimes as parents, we just a one-way conversation to our children.
mm.
But to hear my dad say that, and then to again recognize all the great stuff inside of that, that man loved me for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Um, my brother never knew a stranger. Never knew a stranger. He and I say this often, any ounce of being an extrovert that which I'm not, believe it or not,
No.
that any ounce of that I am now is me desperately trying to siphon that energy from what my brother had.
Yeah.
Um, and I will never forget, he just didn't care. He didn't give a shit who was around. And we were in the middle of the grocery store, and there was this one announce, like, they come over the speaker and announce like what's on sale or whatever. There
Yeah.
was this guy at the Publix in Florida that he was just real excited about his job. He was real excited, and he would come, "Good afternoon, Publix shoppers." Like, he would just be so, and my brother got the biggest so when he would do this and my brother would be in the store,
Yeah.
my brother would pick up whatever cucumber, carrot, whatever pen was near. "Good afternoon, speaker guy," like as loud as he possibly could in the store, did not care who was around,
Yeah.
nothing. And it was just this fun, loving like sometimes it was much. Sometimes it was much, but that was him.
Yeah.
And it's who he was. And I will never forget. Like I aspire to be that part of him, that just wasn't afraid to just express himself and be who he was. Um, everybody's crying. Everybody's crying today. They're passing the tissues. We got it all. Listen,
Yeah.
this has been a great conversation, and I hope that we have inspired everybody to process things the way that you are. You can see Cheryl needs the tissues now too. Y'all better share. Um, ask questions,
For sure.
have some grace, be there for each other, understand that we all need support in any kind of season of grief that we're going through. And uh I'm excited to talk about the next step in this conversation next episode, which is turning grief into growth, the transformation process that if we allow it to happen. And I want to be clear that we're not talking about a certain timeline as we
Mm.
have this conversation next week. And we're not even really, for me, I don't think I'm even really talking about an arrival. I'm
Yeah.
talking about a conscious choice, moment to moment.
Mhm.
How do I want to use this grief energy today?
Yeah. And
And that's what we're going to talk about next week.
I just want to
And
end today's conversation with it's okay to say I don't know.
Mhm.
That I learned that is the best answer versus making up something for pretending. Human beings, we pretend so much. Sometimes it's okay to say I don't know
Yeah.
versus not saying nothing at all. as Jessica mentioned.
That's it.
Just say, hey, you know what? I don't even know what to say right now. And they'll tell you, you don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
But
community. And that's a way for us to step into that integrity.
yeah.
To admit when we don't know everything. I know it's hard for us humans. I know it's hard. Okay, we don't know it
That was my
all.
dad. My dad be like, if I said as a child, I don't know, there's no such thing as I don't know. And then we can look it up in the library. We can go find the answer.
Yeah.
But then, Dad, I had to tell Dad, you know what? It's okay to say I don't know.
And you didn't know till you went to the library. So just
exactly.
Okay, Dad. All right. You can
But yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I thank you for having this conversation. This really was a doozy to start off with. And listen, we want you guys to be thinking about, for when we come back in 2 weeks, be thinking about what are some topics you want to hear for our next series. Be thinking about that, because we'll be talking about that at the end of next week's episode as well. So y'all can be well prepared for the next 4-part series.
We do not have all the answers.
I love it. Yeah, because we need your help. We're being vulnerable right now, boys and girls. We need your help. Okay.
All the answers.
Need your help. Thank you all so much for being here tonight for another episode of Beyond 2D. I am Jessica Dugas.
Thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for everything. You got all your shows going on and you still getting it in.
Working it out. Join us tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time for Project Joy Live. And then we have virtual co-working tomorrow afternoon. If you have stuff to get done, you had a to-do list, come and join us. It's a great, wonderful space where we can celebrate, but also listen, it's about that integrity, holding each other accountable. You say you want to do this, so let's get it done. You say. Say. That was a great song. Anyway.
That was a good one.
We gotta go before this turns into a musical. I love y'all so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.